Hello there. Welcome to Blitz Transmissions. I'm Tommy. This is episode 27 of the Blitzcast. Before we get into the content of this week's podcast episode, as always, make sure to go check out all the links in the description below. Obviously, the first one being the link to my Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel in an above and beyond way, get access to all my content early, as well as get access to monthly giveaways and more. For $5 a month, you can become an ARC Trooper and join my Patreon. You can also get access to, if you just like the reviews and you like to vote on what I'm going to review next for the channel, you can do that too by joining my channel membership, Rancor Battalion, here on YouTube. That is 99 cents a month, and that gives you, again, access to early reviews, and you get to vote on if I get like a pile of loot or something from Big Bad Toy Store. You can vote on what I review first. Additionally, if you're not yet subscribed to my YouTube channel, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions because I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. Make sure to check out the links to my Instagram, my other Instagram page, Blitz Bounties, my X page, my now TikTok, and that's all I can think of at the moment. All the links are in the description below, guys. And something, too, if you ever want to reach out, I do have my email at the bottom of every description on the videos, for every podcast episode. The email is in there too. It's just blitztransmissions@gmail.com. If you want to reach out, collab, anything like that, feel free. A lot's been going on this last week. This last week was kind of nuts. So I have been on my little press tour, I keep calling it, that I've been on, where I've just been on a bunch of different channels for a bunch of different things. I'm a regular co-host with the Sarlacc Digest Toy Chest over on the Sarlacc Digest channel with Darth Moocher, Scott Solo, two of their guys, and then Alexander Storm from the Shadow Nose Network as well. That show's super fun. We did a bonus episode last week to kind of talk about all the reveals from the recent Hasbro Star Wars fan stream, which occurred last week. Did also get to be on the Out of the Basement Lazy Sunday live stream this past Sunday with Nate and Justin. Thanks, guys, again for inviting me onto that. That was a lot of fun. I was also on with the my friend Cody, the Stone Mandalorian. I was on a stream on his channel talking about bullying and talking about the positives and negatives of the collecting community and, the wider fandom as a whole. A lot more of a follow-up to last week's podcast episode, which was very heavy. I don't think we're going to be so heavy this podcast episode, guys. I just want to say, kind of following up on last week's topic, I can tell you for a fact, a lot of stuff that I said last week came true. We banded together as a community, and we squashed a bully in the community. I think we did a great job of that at, kind of letting them know very vocally that we are not going to tolerate that behavior, that toxic name-calling and belittling behavior on our side of the fence. And I want to say we did a great job on that, and that made me really, really happy. Let me double check. I've been on so many shows recently. I think I'm lumping Black Series Cantina into that too. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything here. Let's check my posts. Yeah, I think that's all the shows I've been on, because I always like to mention the shows. Did a collab with Commander Cook last week. If I didn't mention that already, Commander Cook made me some custom Black Series figures, so go check out that video on YouTube as well. And then there was this whole thing. So if you're on YouTube, you would have seen I didn't post actually any. I haven't posted any full YouTube videos. I've been doing the short form content, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, TikToks, a lot of those. But this past week has been not a lot, almost at all, of longer videos. And actually, this is the first time I'll have posted a video in a week up on YouTube. And the reason being for that is because I was dedicating a lot of my spare time into a different project. So when I was on Lazy Sunday with the Out of the Basement boys, we were talking about an action figure related topic, obviously, in the Black Series line, which is the 6-inch scale Star Wars action figure line right now. Another creator, Lugness Monster, does a March Madness bracket where it's all action figures, okay? And It's fun, but a lot of people have a big issue with how many clone troopers Lukeness puts in his bracket, because a lot of the clone troopers are repaints that Lukeness picks, and like very minimal new tooling involved. And a lot of times, because a lot of people love clone troopers, including myself, those characters that these clone troopers go up against get wiped. And it happens, like it's been multiple years in a row now that something like this has happened, where, you know, a lot of people in the community get real up in arms about it, and you know, they think it's kind of annoying. So Out of the Basement guys and I were talking about that, you know that aspect of it being frustrating, and someone from Hasbro was in the chat, and he said, shout out Brandon. Brandon said, well, Tommy, why don't you just do a clone trooper only March Madness bracket? I would love to see something like that. And I'm like, you know, if anyone's going to do a bracket that's only clone troopers, I think I'm your guy. It's almost like the name of my channel and the mascot of the channel are an obscure clone trooper from the Clone Wars. So I got right to work. I'm an absolute crackhead when it comes to doing things that I'm passionate about. So I did like community polling for a few days. That was a lot of fun to do. The community polling really came down to I posted the graphic that I made literally as soon as the Lazy Sunday stream was done. I made the graphic for my March Madness, the Order 66 edition, as I called it. And I basically commented, you know, I told people, comment on my posts throughout all my social media and in my Discord. What clone troopers do you want to see in the Black Series? People would comment their submissions. I was actively, throughout those next few days, keeping a list on my notes on my phone, keeping a tally as to every time I'd get a repeat on one. I ended up with a ton of different clone troopers. I had over 600 submissions, over 160 unique clone troopers that were submitted. It was a ton of fun to do, and I mean, it was definitely a lot of work, and that's a big reason I didn't have a lot of videos come out. But it was all worth it, in my opinion. It was so much fun. So now the bracket is currently going. We are in round 1. I think as you guys see this, it'll be day 2 of round 1. So round 1's going to last 4 days. So get involved. Go vote. Support the March Madness bracket. It was a lot of fun to put together, and I'm very happy that it's being well received by the greater community. With that out of the way, you know, that kind of explains what I've been up to this past week. I thought it would be a fitting topic to talk about clone troopers. Wow, big surprise. I know half of you probably clicked off right now because you're tired of hearing about clone troopers. I'm wearing a Bad Batch shirt right now. I think that there is a little bit of confusion, especially from fans that didn't, you know, grow up with Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith, you know, maybe as much as some of us younger guys did. And this is something I've mentioned on the podcast before, something I've talked about with Justin from Out of the Basement, is that there's this weird, like very minor generational gap between the kids that were just a little too old to, you know, really sit down and start enjoying the Clone Wars as it was coming out, and then, you know, people that were a few years younger, like myself, that really just were the perfect age. We were the target audience for Clone Wars. And there's I don't think people understand the obsession with the clone troopers, because I mean, I'm one of them, dude. I have an obsession with clone troopers. And there's a lot of people, especially my age, that have a shared obsession for clone troopers. So I kind of wanted to dive into that topic, I guess, because maybe if you're not a fan of clone troopers, this can help you understand where we're coming from, and, you know, kind of, you know, we can understand each other a little better. One point that I always make right off the bat is, you know, one easy way to kind of give you an analogy for people's fixation on clone troopers, especially with the Clone Wars show, had so many, you know, named, unnamed clone troopers that had unique paint designs, different legions, different commanders. You'll see them in one episode or like 2 seconds and they blow up or they die or they get chopped in half. it's, why would you care about those characters and, especially want to see them as action figures? The analogy that I come up with is that these clone troopers for my generation are the same kind of want as like Cantina aliens and Jabba denizens and Glup Shittos. Basically, these clone troopers are Glup Shittos of the Clone Wars realm. And so I can say to like Star Wars original trilogy superfans, like, maybe you don't understand why clone troopers are so popular. It's that same like kind of desire. You kind of just want all of them. Like, just like original trilogy heads want like Muftak and the Skiff Guard and the Yak Face, and they want all of those, and I can't think of the one name, Wyoslia, characters like Hermie Yodel, that was the one I was trying to think of. Ifant Mon. I could go on and on and on and on. A lot of those characters are characters that original trilogy fans want, and that they're very deep cut. They're background characters. These clone troopers are essentially the same type of want for cloners like myself, and I love that that's the community like name, kind of like tongue in cheek. In some cases, I think people try to use it as an insult, but I think more often than not, it's just a funny term, cloners. So let me tell you kind of why I and so many people around my age want a blue one. I want a red one. I want a Band-Aid one. I want a Hunchback one. Why do we want so many clone troopers in action figure form? Why are we so obsessed with clone troopers? What's the fixation on the clones? I think it starts with Revenge of the Sith. And honestly, I'd go even further with that. I'd say it starts with the 2003 Clone Wars leading into Revenge of the Sith. Because for me, I had the 2003 Clone Wars, and I was obsessed with it before I had the 2008 Clone Wars. And I know some of you guys are a little too young to even remember 2003 Clone Wars, the Genndy Tartakovsky version. But this micro series really did a great job of giving clone troopers a little bit more uniqueness. I mean, in Attack of the Clones, you have your basic ones, and then you have your 4 colored ranks. But there wasn't, that was really it. I mean, they didn't have much personality other than the fact that they just looked cool. You didn't really have much to go off of with these clones. Then came along the 2003 Clone Wars. My favorite part of that entire series, and it's obviously hard to pick a favorite part because the whole thing is just amazing from beginning to end. My favorite part though is the Battle of Munilist, where you have the Munilist 10, Captain Fordo and his band of ARC troopers, getting behind enemy lines and doing covert stuff and just being badasses. They didn't talk very much, which was still pretty consistent with Attack of the Clones at the time. They didn't have much personality, but they were kick-ass. And that really started, for me, just on a basic level, myself and so many people my age, that really sprouted the obsession with clone troopers. I remember I would play with my Revenge of the Sith toys. I had a Republic gunship, and I would load it all up with my ARC troopers, my clone troopers, and this is all pre-Clone Wars, and I would be flying it, and I would just reenact that sequence where the gunship gets shot down, it crashes on the ground, and they have to defend the gunship, and against battle droids or Sith Lords or whoever. And that was how it was, man. That really sprouted the obsession with the clone troopers, the fixation. I always wanted to play with the clone troopers. Those were probably my favorite group, and they remain so to this day of action figures. Moving on to kind of a little bit further than that, and again, 2003 Clone Wars had some really cool, different alterations of clones, different versions of clones like scuba troopers, space troopers, things like that. And then we moved into Revenge of the Sith, which really capitalized and emphasized on that, big change. Everyone was very uniform in Attack of the Clones, and now every unit has their own individual colors and armor sets and, maybe different weapons. And it was extremely catching to the eye, obviously. The bright, vibrant colors, the vehicles, the different loadouts, etc. So as a kid, you latch on to stuff like that. It's like anything. Transformers, Power Rangers, Ninja Turtles. You just throw bright colors on something that already looks cool, and it just makes it 10 times cooler. And, there's more collectability to it. Like at that point, when I was a kid, it was, okay, well, I like the 212th. I like the 501st. I like the Shock Troopers. You really, anything you're wanting to collect stuff of the same color for that team building aspect. And it was really smart on the merchandising part of Star Wars to do that. But I do think that it actually had some cool factor for kids. And that's where the whole joke comes from. I want a blue one. I want an orange one. I want a red one. And that's honestly, to me, I feel like that's part of the reason clones were so beloved by my generation in The Clone Wars, which began in 2008, because it was improving upon, in my opinion, something that Star Wars already capitalized on. So you already had a whole generation of kids that were already obsessed with clone troopers, okay? Then 2008 Clone Wars come out, and then you have characters like Captain Rex. And Captain Rex was really the missing link with your Captain Fordos or your Alpha 17s from the comic books, which came out around the time of the prequel trilogy, where, it's a lot less good soldiers follow orders, that just order following robotic almost mentality, and it becomes much more of a person with a personality. Rex walks around with his helmet off a lot, which we did see in Revenge of the Sith, but it's more prominent in the Clone Wars movie in the first season. You get to see, specifically just talking about the movie, I mean, Captain Rex has some great character moments throughout. He's loyal through and through. He's a good soldier. He is cocky sometimes. He's got, quick little one-liners sometimes for the battle droids. They call them clankers. There's just so much, and obviously his design looks so cool. And I think that was really what latched on, that emphasized on that capitalization of the clones looking cool. That's one thing, you're going to get to sell toys that way, but then you give them a character. You give them a personality that you can attach yourself to. And there's a reason, I'll show you right now on my arm here, there's a reason I have a Captain Rex J Guys tattoo on my left shoulder here. And I'll get into more of it why. So then, of course, you get your Clone Wars movie, and then season 1 comes out. Now, I remember I got to go to an event. I think it was in Philadelphia, I want to say. I could be wrong, but I think it was in Philly. I went with my dad and my grandfather, and my dad was trooping with the 501st Legion for a kind of premiere event for the Clone Wars Season 1. And they had the first couple episodes playing on these screens in the little common area, lounge area, in one of the atriums of this mall that we were in. And while my dad's trooping, I literally sat there the entire day and just watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of the Clone Wars over and over and over and over. And I was captivated by it. And I think what I was most captivated by, again, was the Clone Troopers. Because for me, it was, that first episode, there's Yoda with Lieutenant Thyer, and then the other 2 clones' names are Jek and Reese. I watched that episode so many times over, and it was cool because each of the clone troopers now had their own little quirk. It wasn't like in previous media where they were carbon copies of each other. Reese is, focused on the numbers of the battle, how many troops are on the other side versus our side. We don't stand a chance. Jack is focused on how much firepower they have. They have more guns than us. I only have 1 rocket for the launcher. We don't stand a chance. And Thyer is trying to be a leader, but then he gets injured. So he's trying to keep the morale up. But how do you keep the morale up when you're in bad shape yourself? Yoda has a really cool teaching moment with them. And again, Yoda really ingrains in you as the viewer, not just the clones that he's talking to in that scene, but he ingrains in you as the viewer that the clone troopers are individuals. I think, if I can remember the line, he says, "Clones you may be, and then he makes a point about each one of us are individuals in the Force. I don't remember the rest of the direct quote, but I always remember him saying, "Clones you may be." And Yoda explains to them that, they need to survive the war. They need to live through the war in order to, and they'll learn things as they go. And if they learn lessons and, become better as individuals, that is what will get them to survive the war, not how many troops you have, how many guns you have. That is really what really, I think, did just as much for me as a kid. And I was the target audience, the target demographic for this show. I think it did just as much for me as it did for those three characters in that moment. And then again, you have another moment. We'll move on to the second episode, which is the beginning of the 3-part Malevolence arc. And you have the episode where Plo Koon is with the 104th Battalion, the Wolf Pack. He's with Sinker, Boost, and Commander Wolf, and he, their cruiser gets attacked by the Malevolence, gets destroyed, and they defeat the pod hunters, these battle droids that are going around opening up all the escape pods and sucking everyone out into the vacuum of space. Plo Koon, Sinker, and Boost defeat the battle droids, and the clones are talking to Plo Koon, and they say, "We are expendable. We're expendable. We don't have, we're just clones, blah, blah, blah." And then Plo Koon says, "Not to me." Again, it's kind of crazy. I'm having like this epiphany right now of, wow, they really did a good job with this show because, again, I was the target audience. And again, it without even realizing until now as an adult, what the show effectively was doing was getting me to appreciate each clone trooper as an individual. Appreciate the fact that each one of them had their own quirks. And under those helmets, they're not just mindless robots. Every single one of them has a personality and a story to tell. And I thought... I thought that was just so profound as I was, sitting and thinking about putting this episode together and talking about the clones. So, as I was a 8-year-old when the show came out. I was literally the target demographic for the Clone Wars. I was someone who aged with the show. I think because of that, and again, obviously they have cool designs and, blah, blah, blah. That's obvious. That's like very surface level. But I think if you dig a layer deeper, if you start peeling the layers back, you see that you grow an attachment to clones in general because of the way the Jedi treated them. You see them the way the Jedi do. And whether it was Yoda or Plo Koon in those first couple episodes. And I think it really affected the way that I felt. And a lot of my friends talk about this all the time. I don't know why I get so, as a kid, I'd get so upset when just a random grunt would die, like a nameless, faceless clone trooper would just die. I think that's it. I think it's because right at the beginning, we get ingrained by the writers that these clone troopers, are individuals and that they are people and that they matter. And so because they matter to the Jedi, they matter to us too. And I think that that's why we get such a reaction to clone troopers losing battles, clone troopers dying, clone troopers sacrificing themselves, because of that connection, that immediate connection to the clones. Obviously, you go through season 1, you get to meet the Domino Squad, another group of clones, and you get to see Heavy sacrifice himself. We're left with Fives and Echo, who we get to follow throughout the show. And again, we get to see other characters like Waxer and Boyle on Ryloth towards the end of the show. Or the end of the first season, I should say. And then as the show progresses, we get introduced to more clone troopers, different kinds of clone troopers, like ARF troopers, ARC troopers. And I think that just as a blanket thing, I think they end up mattering to us as the viewers so much more. Again, I'm the target audience for the show, because of those very important moments that are ingrained in the very beginning there. And it really affects you. Like I remember, like, by the time like we're in season 3 and you watch like Arc Commander Colt get stabbed by Ventress and she gives him a kiss. I was mad when I was a kid. I remember watching that show. I'm sure my dad remembers this too. I was like, oh, what? That's, oh man. Like, and every time, like, And they were brutal too, man. The clones, they went through it. They were just fodder, man. Like when they did the Citadel arc of the Clone Wars, and you watch clones die in the most gruesome ways possible. One exploding on a landmine, one gets electrocuted to death, one gets, executed, headshot executed, one gets chopped in half by a closing door. There's just, it's just, it really works on your heartstrings a little bit here. And I think the thing is too, it was little moments like as those deaths are happening, a lot of times, a clone, a captain or an officer or a named one that we're more familiar with will say, man, this clone's dead. Ringo, this, I'm trying to think of some other names. Ringo is the one from the episode with Rex and Bly on that one planet with the Lerman, where Lot Dodd comes in with the defoliator. A long shot, Charger. Those are a couple ones from the Citadel arc. They say the clones' names, and you're like, damn it, they had some kind of a relationship off screen. Obviously if they knew each other by first name, they had some sort of connection off screen. And obviously all the clones do because they're all brothers. But, they had some sort of connection, and you feel that same thing. And I think as the show goes on and you watch what happens to then, clones you really care about, like Fives, for example. When Fives dies in the Clone Wars, I was crushed watching that episode. And that was season 6. That was the Lost Missions. So that was an episode that you didn't even get to watch because at that point, Clone Wars had been discontinued for Cartoon Network, and because Disney bought Star Wars. And you had to buy the DVD set called The Clone Wars, The Lost Missions. And I remember I was like welling up with tears watching, Fives die in Rex's arms. The mission, the nightmares, they're finally over. After learning about the inhibitor chips, and that whole arc, man, was so heavy on me as like a 13-year-old kid. Because again, the clones become your favorite characters. And again, they represent a lot of great traits. They're loyal. They have good work ethic. They will sacrifice themselves for the right cause. Really, they are good guys through and through. And then just to know, honestly, it hurts way more than the Revenge of the Sith I guess I should say the pre-inhibitor chip explanation, which was, the clones just always knew about Order 66. They were just waiting to be given the command. I love the inhibitor chip thing so much more, and I think that really all of this stuff reinforces why I love the inhibitor chip explanation so much more. Because with the inhibitor chips, you don't sacrifice that the clones were good people for the sake of following orders. And I think that's the key difference there, because they made the clone troopers into actual characters in the 2008 Clone Wars, more so than just, a guy here and there. Maybe this one has different paint or a different haircut. Yeah, they look visually different. But a lot of them, they were all still clones at the end of the day. This show gave you another layer to that. And I think that's why it just doesn't make sense to me that the clones would have personalities and be such good-hearted people, and then they would just turn on their Jedi like that. And honestly, it makes the scene in season 7 of the Clone Wars, fast forwarding to modern day Star Wars. In season 7, two powerful moments, like watching Rex shed a tear as he's trying to fight the urge to execute Order 66, but he just physically can't do it. That hurt, watching him try to fight it with Ahsoka. And then the moment in the finale of the show where, Ahsoka takes off Rex's helmet because she senses his sadness in the Force, that he knows his brothers are lost, man. He knows there's no way they're coming back. And to watch him cry and have that moment of vulnerability is extremely powerful, especially for a lot of us, Captain Rex being your favorite clone trooper. That was a really, really powerful moment there. And part of what happens with this show is it evolves. And I think that it's the love for the clone troopers that made things like the Bad Batch. I don't think the Bad Batch would exist at all if it weren't for the Clone Wars, and specifically the clones being so successful on an entire generation of fans. if it weren't for the Clone Wars, we would not get the conclusions that we got in the Bad Batch. We would not have seen clones show up in Rebels. We would not have, it just would have kind of got left, I feel like. But yeah, I feel like it's a great story, and I think that the clones really needed some conclusion, because I think that that's what hurts a lot about their story too as a kid, is especially watching the 2008 Clone Wars, and even after season 7, you're like, yeah, and then they just, a lot of them just execute Order 66. They kill their Jedi they've had friendships with for 3 years now, and that's it. And then they become stormtroopers, and then they age out, and they retire, and they die. It was cool that the Bad Batch really expanded upon that, and even though it wasn't every clone trooper, nowhere near, we got to see some clone troopers have some semblance of a happy ending. And that to me is very important. And the Bad Batch did such a great job. And honestly, there's people that still want to see clones, And honestly, it really, I think for people my age, I think that you can feel that deep connection for these characters with other people. And I think, honestly, it directly correlates to a lot of my closest friends in the Star Wars community are huge cloners. And it's kind of funny that you can, through the love for the clone troopers, you can, connect with other people. It's almost like you already know each other because of that shared appreciation, that shared deep love for clone troopers. And I think, speaking of clone troopers, my dog, Cody, named after Clone Commander Cody, is getting ready to squeak his ball at me. I guess not. I guess he gave up on it. But if you start hearing squeaking in the next couple minutes here, recently I've been leaving the door open in this room and letting him hang out with me. But yeah, I mean, like I was saying, I feel like the connections you build with people, you kind of already know each other if you really both love clone troopers. And obviously everyone has their favorite legions and their preferences on what commander is the best one. Can Fordo beat Captain Rex in a fist fight? All that kind of stuff. But it's a really cool kind of glue that holds an entire generation of fans together, to the point where, look at how many people have their own custom clone legion or their own original character, that represents the mascot of their channel or their Instagram page, or, look at how many customizers do custom clone trooper action figures, or how many how many artists do custom art of clone troopers and retelling things, creating new stories, what ifs, and things like that. I think it speaks volumes to the deep fixation on them. And basically what I'm trying to get at here is looking beneath the surface of, they just look cool. There's a lot more to it with the clone troopers. And yeah, I feel like that's a good way to wrap up this podcast. Again, this is a really short one. We're coming down to Andor, guys. Don't worry, we're going to get some good episodes here. I'll be breaking down Andor week to week. But I don't know. I kind of felt like this video needed to be a little shorter. One, for my sanity, because I'm so drained after doing all the stuff with the Clone Trooper bracket. Go vote on the Clone Trooper bracket, by the way. Vote on what action figures you want to see for clones. But yeah, I'm drained. I feel like I just need to do a shorter episode, and this was a topic that I felt was really fitting and a really good lighthearted topic to discuss after last week's topic, which was very heavy. Yeah, so just again, hope that explained why clone troopers are so integral to all of us here and my generation of fans. Maybe if you don't understand it, maybe I helped you understand it a little better. I'm not saying you have to like clone troopers. I'm just saying maybe you kind of get where we're coming from now. Yeah, that's all I got for you this week, guys. Again, make sure to tune in. I'm going to be kicking up the reviews again these next couple weeks here. Really, again, pushing the short form content, coming up with some new ideas for content as well. I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Again, as always, check out all the stuff in the description below, all the links. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube as well, guys. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.
Breaking all units, fire at will. Ward 2, pick a target. Too many, Captain. Watch your stabilizer, Gold 6. Anybody cover me. I got 2 vultures on my tail. You've got to hold them here. Watch your left. I can't shake them. I'm hit. Where's our reinforcements?